The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, 20 years late. And somehow, it still found him. Nathan Reed almost threw it away. Almost. Because he didn't recognize the handwriting, didn't recognize the stamp, didn't recognize the return address. But then he noticed something strange. Written across the front were 6 words. For Nathan, if it's not too late. He froze, because nobody wrote like that anymore. Nobody. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. If you received a letter from your past today, one capable of changing everything you believed, would you open it? Or would you leave it unopened forever? Comment below. And if you enjoy emotional stories about family, life, secrets, and second chances, subscribe and join us. Because sometimes, the things we leave behind don't stay behind forever. 42-year-old Nathan lived a quiet life. Not perfect, not terrible. Just quiet. He owned a small bookstore in a peaceful town. People liked him, trusted him. But if anyone asked him about his past, he usually smiled and changed the subject. Because some parts of his life felt easier not to revisit, especially his childhood. Nathan grew up with his mother. Only his mother. As a child, he used to ask questions. The same questions children always ask. Where's Dad? When is he coming back? What happened? But his mother always gave the same answer. He left. Nothing more. Nothing less. And eventually, Nathan stopped asking. Because children learn quickly when questions make people sad. Years later, he stopped wondering entirely. At least, that's what he told himself. Nathan looked down at the envelope again. His fingers moved slowly across the paper. Then his eyes stopped at the return address. And suddenly, his heart nearly stopped. Because written there was a name he had never seen before. Daniel Reed. Nathan stared. Reed. His last name. The same last name. The same name his mother always avoided talking about. No. No way. His hands began trembling. Because deep down, a thought had already entered his mind. A thought he didn't want to believe. What if this letter was from his father? Nathan stared at the envelope. His hands felt strangely heavy. For 20 years, he had lived with one version of the story, one version of the truth. His father left. That was all he knew. That was all he had ever been told. Slowly, he sat down behind the counter of his bookstore. Outside, people walked past the windows. Cars moved along the street. Life continued normally. But inside, something felt different. Because somehow, before opening the letter, Nathan already knew this wasn't going to be ordinary. Carefully, he slid his finger under the envelope flap. The paper inside looked old, very old. Fold marks ran across the center. Corners had yellowed slightly. As if the letter had spent years waiting somewhere, waiting for him. Nathan unfolded it slowly, then began reading. Dear Nathan, I don't know if this letter will ever reach you, and I don't know if you would even want to read it if it does. Nathan swallowed hard. If you're reading this, then life has given me a chance I stopped believing I would ever have. Nathan frowned. Chance? What chance? He kept reading. For 20 years, I imagined this moment thousands of times. I imagined explaining myself. I imagined apologizing. I imagined seeing you again. Nathan suddenly stopped reading. Again? Again? His eyes narrowed. Again? No. That didn't make sense. He read the sentence again. Seeing you again. Nathan stared at the paper. Because according to his mother, his father left before he could remember him. So how could there be an again? His heartbeat started speeding up. Fast. Very fast. Suddenly, he wasn't reading anymore. He was searching for answers, searching for the truth. Nathan continued. There isn't a day that passed where I didn't think about you. Not your birthdays, not Christmas, not your first day of school, not a single year. Nathan's chest tightened, because these weren't words from someone who sounded indifferent. These weren't words from someone who sounded like they walked away. Then he reached the next line, and his entire world stopped. Nathan, I never left you. Silence. Complete silence. Nathan stared. Once, twice, 3 times. I never left you. His hands began shaking. No, no, that wasn't possible. Because if that was true, then something else had to be true. Something far more terrifying. Someone had lied. Nathan couldn't breathe. He kept staring at the words. I never left you. Again, and again, and again. His mind refused to accept it, because if those words were true, then everything he believed about his childhood was wrong. Everything. Slowly he stood up. The chair behind him scraped against the floor. Customers inside the bookstore turned slightly, but Nathan didn't notice. His heart was pounding too loudly. He grabbed his car keys, grabbed the letter, locked the store early, because suddenly, there was only one place he needed to go. Home. His mother's house hadn't changed much. Not really. Same porch, same flower pots, same little wind chime hanging beside the front door. As Nathan parked outside, old memories started returning. Running through the yard as a child, his mother calling him inside for dinner, summer evenings on the porch. For years, this place felt safe, but now, for the first time in his life, it felt different. Because suddenly, he wasn't coming here as a son, he was coming here for answers. Nathan walked to the front door, his hands trembling, then knocked. Once, twice. A few seconds later, the door opened. His mother smiled immediately. Nathan? Surprised. What are you doing here? Then she noticed his face, and the smile disappeared. Mom, he said quietly. His voice felt different, heavy. Can I come in? Something in her eyes changed immediately. Because mothers notice things. They always do. She stepped aside. Nathan walked inside slowly. The living room looked exactly the same. Family photos, old books, small decorations, pieces of his childhood sitting everywhere. But Nathan barely looked around, because his eyes were locked on one thing, the letter in his hand. His mother saw it, and instantly, her face lost color. Completely. She froze. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then very softly, almost like a whisper, she said, "Where did you get that?" Nathan stared at her, because suddenly, he didn't need to ask whether she recognized it. She already had. And somehow, that scared him more than anything. He slowly placed the letter on the table, then asked the question that had been burning inside him since he opened it. Mom, who is Daniel Reed? Silence. Absolute silence. Then his mother's eyes filled with tears, because at that moment, Nathan realized something terrifying. She wasn't shocked. She was afraid. Nathan stared at his mother. She stared back at him. But this wasn't the same look she used to give him. Not the warm look. Not the protective look. This was fear. Real fear. Slowly, she sat down, almost as if her legs suddenly felt weak. Nathan, she whispered. For a moment, she couldn't continue. Her eyes stayed fixed on the letter. Then she said something that made his stomach tighten instantly. I always hoped this day wouldn't come. Nathan frowned. Wouldn't come. His chest tightened, because suddenly, he didn't want vague answers anymore. No more half-truths. No more silence. Mom, he said quietly, tell me the truth. Silence. Outside, wind moved the trees softly. The old clock in the living room ticked slowly. Tick, tick, tick. Finally, she took a deep breath. When you were little, she said softly, your father didn't leave. Nathan froze. No. No. Because hearing it out loud somehow felt different. Much different. The words hit harder than the letter did. His heartbeat pounded. Then she continued. We had problems. Real problems. We argued. We were unhappy. But he never stopped loving you. Nathan couldn't speak, because for 20 years, he had imagined a man who didn't care, a man who walked away, a man who chose freedom over family. And now, that man suddenly didn't exist anymore. His mother looked down at her hands. Tears slowly rolled down her face. "The day I left," she whispered, "I took you with me." Nathan stared. His mind stopped completely. "What?" Her voice shook. "We had a terrible fight. I was angry, very angry. And I thought leaving would protect us." Nathan felt cold. "Protect us," she continued speaking. "Your father tried calling. He wrote letters. So many letters." Nathan looked at the envelope, then back at her. "No, no, no. You mean—" His voice barely worked. "You knew?" She closed her eyes and nodded. Everything inside Nathan collapsed. Because suddenly, he understood. This wasn't one missing letter. This was years, birthdays, Christmases, school graduations, memories, questions, years, 20 years. Then slowly, Nathan asked the question he was suddenly terrified to hear answered. "Where are they?" His mother looked up, confused. "The letters." Silence. Long silence. Then her face changed, because suddenly, she realized exactly what he meant. Nathan stared at her, because deep down, he already knew. He knew the answer before she said it, and somehow, that made it hurt even more. Nathan stared at his mother. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. The question still sat between them, heavy, painful. "Where are the letters?" His mother's eyes slowly filled with tears. Then she looked away, and somehow, that was all the answer Nathan needed. "No," he whispered. "No. Please no." Slowly she stood up, without saying a word, then began walking toward the hallway. Nathan followed, his heart pounding harder with every step. They passed old family pictures, past the kitchen, past the stairs. Then she stopped in front of a small door, a storage room. Nathan frowned. He remembered this room. Growing up, his mother always kept it locked. Always. Whenever he asked what was inside, she smiled and said, "Just old things. Old things." His hands suddenly felt cold. His mother reached into her pocket, pulled out a small silver key, and for several seconds, she just stared at it. Almost like opening that door would force her to relive 20 years of regret. Slowly, she unlocked it. The door creaked open. Nathan looked inside. At first, he didn't understand what he was seeing. Then his heart stopped. Boxes, dozens of them, stacked carefully against the wall. Some small, some large, every single one labeled with years. Nathan couldn't breathe. No, no way. Slowly he walked closer, his hands shaking. Then he picked up one box, opened it. Inside were letters. Hundreds of them. Letters, cards, birthday notes, photographs, all addressed to him. Every single one. His vision blurred instantly. Because suddenly, he wasn't looking at paper. He was looking at 20 years. 20 years of missed birthdays. 20 years of missed Christmases. 20 years of a father trying to reach his son. Nathan picked up one envelope. Across the front it said, "Nathan, age 10-2. Then another. "Nathan, first day of high school." Another. "Nathan, graduation day." His legs nearly gave out. Because for 20 years, while he believed he was forgotten, someone had been writing to him, remembering him, loving him, waiting for him. Nathan looked back at his mother. Tears streamed down her face. "I was angry," she whispered. "So angry. And after a while, I didn't know how to fix it anymore." Nathan couldn't speak. Because some pain is too big for words. Then his eyes landed on one final envelope sitting alone inside the last box. Different from the others. This one wasn't old. This one looked recent. Very recent. Nathan slowly picked it up, and what he saw written across the front made his heart nearly stop. "If you're reading this, I may not have much time left. Nathan stared at the envelope. His hands shook uncontrollably. Everything around him felt distant. The room, the walls, the old storage boxes. None of it felt real anymore. Because 20 years of questions had suddenly become 20 years of answers. And now, there was one letter left. One final letter. The newest one. The one that somehow frightened him most. Slowly, he opened it. His eyes moved to the first line. Dear Nathan, if you're reading this, then life finally found a way to reach you. Nathan swallowed hard. I don't know whether I'll still be here when you read this, but if I am, I hope I get one chance to see you. Tears immediately filled Nathan's eyes. He kept reading. For 20 years, I wrote letters because I didn't know what else to do. I wrote when you turned 10. I wrote when you graduated. I wrote on birthdays, on Christmas mornings. I even wrote when I saw fathers walking with their sons and wondered what kind of man you were becoming. Nathan couldn't breathe, because suddenly, this wasn't just paper. This was time, lost time, years his father never got back, years Nathan never got back. Then he reached the next paragraph, and his heart dropped. A few months ago, I found out I'm sick. The doctors tell me time may be shorter than I hoped. Nathan froze. No, not after 20 years. Not now. Please, not now. He kept reading with trembling hands. I'm not writing this because I want sympathy, and I'm not writing because I want anyone blamed. Life is complicated. People make mistakes. Your mother made some. And honestly, so did I. Nathan slowly looked toward his mother. She was crying quietly, but something inside Nathan shifted, because his father wasn't angry. Not after 20 years. Not after everything. Then he reached the last part. Nathan, I don't need 20 years back. I don't need explanations. I don't need perfect words. I only want one thing. Nathan's heartbeat pounded. One conversation. Just one. Before it's too late. Nathan looked at the final page. A phone number. An address. And beside it, a handwritten note. I still wait every Sunday. Nathan completely broke down. Because suddenly, he remembered something. Every Sunday afternoon, for years, he always felt strangely sad, strangely empty, and he never knew why. But now, he wondered something impossible. What if somewhere, without realizing it, two people had been waiting for each other? Then Nathan looked at the date written at the bottom, and his blood ran cold. Because the letter wasn't written months ago. It was written 8 days ago. Nathan stared at the date. 8 days. Only 8 days ago. His heartbeat exploded. 8 days meant one thing. His father could still be alive. But it also meant something else. Time was running out. Nathan grabbed the letter, grabbed his keys, and ran. Nathan, his mother called behind him, but he didn't stop. Not because he was angry. Not anymore. Because after 20 years, he finally understood something. Anger steals enough time already. He wasn't going to lose another second. The drive felt endless. Every traffic light felt too long. Every minute felt too slow. And during the entire drive, one thought kept repeating inside his head. What if I'm too late? What if after 20 years, I miss him by 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute? Nathan's hands tightened around the steering wheel, because he suddenly realized something painful. For years he believed he was abandoned, but somewhere out there, another man had spent 20 years believing he had lost his son. The address eventually led him to a small town nearly 2 hours away. Quiet streets, small houses, old trees lining the roads. Nathan pulled up in front of a modest white house and froze, because outside, sitting on a porch chair, was an older man. Gray hair, thin face, worn hands, holding a cup of coffee, waiting, just waiting. Nathan couldn't breathe, because somehow, before anyone said anything, he knew. He knew. The older man looked up, then slowly stood. His coffee cup slipped from his hand and hit the ground. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Neither spoke. Because how do you begin a conversation delayed by 20 years? Nathan felt tears building. Because suddenly, he wasn't 42 anymore. Part of him felt like a little boy again. The little boy who once asked, "Where's Dad?" The man stepped forward slowly. His eyes filled immediately. "Nathan?" he whispered. Nathan nodded. That was all it took. The man covered his mouth with his shaking hand and began crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The kind of crying that comes from carrying pain for too long. Then he said, "You came." 3 words. Only 3 words. But somehow, they carried 20 years inside them. Nathan walked forward, slowly, then hugged him. And for the first time in his entire life, he hugged his father. Years later, people would ask Nathan what changed his life, and he always gave the same answer: a letter. Then he would smile, and a second chance I almost never got. Moral of the story: sometimes the truth arrives late. Sometimes years are lost. Sometimes mistakes steal time we can never recover. But as long as there is still time left, there is still a chance to heal. Because pride creates distance. Silence creates pain. But one honest conversation can change everything. If someone from your past sent you a letter today, would you open it? Tell us in the comments. And subscribe for more emotional stories about family, love, forgiveness, and second chances. Because sometimes the words that arrive late become the words that matter most.